Now, I don't want you believing this until you've seen the evidence. All right, I'm going to show you some evidence. Make your own decision on this. But really, they've been hiding history. They do it as we speak in the news. They rewrite it as history is unfolding. You think they're not going to rewrite past history? Come on, the news is fake. You think that archaeology is real? You think our version of history is real? I invite you, open your mind and just take a look at the evidence. All right? Just take a look at the evidence. Just look at the pictures. I'm going to show you some examples. This is phenomenal, but it's not surprising.
So here we have, not only do we have a boomerang from Egypt in the Ashmolean Museum in Oxford, we also have a giant flint knife. And you just see the size of that compared to my hand. You can see that it is pretty big. So this is from Hierakonpolis in excavations in 1897 to 1899, very early dynastic period. But these were buried deliberately beneath the temple by the later dynasties. But this massive flint knife, the unwieldy size, does suggest that indeed giants were doing their thing in Egypt. And then with this Australian looking boomerang, how bizarre is this? Found in the same place, again buried beneath the temple, as so to hide it. So we have evidence of giants from Egypt in the Ashmolean Museum. You can clearly see this huge flint knife. Just see the size of it compared to my hand on display in the extremely early dynastic period. So these are the oversized mace heads. And what's amazing about this, these represent the first king, the first pharaoh, Numa, or the scorpion king from ancient Egypt. And massive wooden poles would have been placed in these. So whether these were actually used by the giant kings, then we have evidence that there are certainly giants. You can see that over there with the great knife blade. Does suggest that indeed the earliest kings, the pre-dynastic kings and pharaohs of Egypt may well have been giants.
brave men tell the truth. The wise man's tools are analogies and puzzles.
Don't know where it goes, but it's home to me and I walk alone. Up. My shadow's only one that walks beside me. My shallow heart's the only thing that's beating. Sometimes I wish someone up there will find me. Till then I walk alone. I'm walking down the line. I'm walking down the line. That divides me somewhere in my mind. I'm walking down the line. That divides me somewhere in my mind. Up. My shadow's only one that walks beside me. My shallow heart's the only thing that's beating. Sometimes I wish someone up there will find me. Till then I walk alone. I'm walking down the line. I'm walking down the line. That divides me somewhere in my mind. I'm walking down the line. That divides me somewhere in my mind. The edge and where I walk alone. I'm walking down the line that divides me somewhere in my mind. On the borderline of the edge and where I walk alone. Between the lines, what's up and everything's alright. Check my vital signs and know I'm still alive and I walk alone. I walk alone, I walk alone.
Giants are absolutely, positively real. They always have been, and they more than likely still are. Alright, it's a documented fact. There's evidence of this everywhere. Alright, you can look at huge weaponry, huge axes and pots in Crete and monuments in Lebanon, Peru, Bolivia, Bosnia, France, England. It's in the Bible, it's in the Quran, it's in every ancient document, every ancient text, every ancient story. You see pictures like this, they're fake. They were made for an art contest. These skeletons in Switzerland, they're real. There's evidence of this everywhere. And probably no better location, no more so in any other location than in Egypt. Now, if you were to define Egypt with one theme, perhaps, if you were to wrap it all up in one theme, it would be immense. It would be gigantic, colossal, huge, massive, giant. Pick a word, pick a synonym. All right, everything is it's absolutely huge. And it was not made by humans. Now, humans did did play a huge part in many things in Egypt, of course. But the stuff you're seeing, giants. We start with the terrace of Akhenaten. You see in this inscription, this is actually in the Louvre Museum, Akhenaten, and you see two smaller servants. Okay, so you could say that Akhenaten, who was a king, the giants are a representation in these pictures of kings. Not an actual representation of their size, but let's keep looking at this. Let's see if that is indeed the case. Look at this. Now, once again, here's a comparison next to the cattle and other animals. These are the inscriptions of Ta-Hatep. And here we have the brother of Ta-Hatep. You see him sitting down and the servants around him providing food. Look at the size difference. What a contrast. It's fairly obvious. Here's the tomb of Ethod. This is in Saqqara. Now, Saqqara, Abydos, Dashur, those are the really old places in Egypt. Here we have women from Saqqara. This is in the tomb of Thi. They're carrying taxes to the rulers of Egypt. This is one of my favorite pictures. Here's the giant Nikausis. All right, he's about 3 meters tall compared to these other people. His servants are all around him. Oh, look at the contrast. This is not representation. This is an actual portrayal of how they looked. This is in the cemetery of San Nejm. Okay, he's one of the greatest engineers and artists of ancient Egyptian times. He was the head of monastery. He was the head of a monastery that specialized in digging and decorating the tombs of the kings in the Valley of the Kings. I mean, look at all the different sizes of people in this one, all right? And just in this one picture, you see his wife in there. She's just as large. She's not a king, okay? And you see all the servants. Here you have Khemenhotep, okay? He's the second governor of the southern territory during the 12th dynasty, about 2000 BC. This is his tomb in the cemetery of Bani Hassan, just south of Minya. He's very large, but he's not a king. And look at all the smaller beings around him. You saw this in my Giants of the Sea video. Nobody in ancient Egypt claims that the size of these things are an indication of kings. I mean, that's what they had cartouches for. All right. Now, it may indicate status to some degree, but it also indicates an entire race. And they overlap because this race had a higher status. So it could be misconstrued in that manner. Here we have Nakht and the wife. Nakht and his wife, okay? And they're being served by the servants of a smaller race. They're definitely a size difference. And this look at the women in the top. This shows that this is a whole race. They're not just males. And the servants are all different sizes. So the servants are giants as well. Now look at the top right. You see a leg. Look at the cattle once again. This is an indication that there were people who were this large. Okay, you think kings are going to be going around, like, you know, dealing with cattle? No, they're not. And neither are noblemen. Okay, these are servants. It's in the Myth-Jitji Cemetery. All right, that's in the Louvre Museum as well. This is an inscription from Sarimt. It's in Luxor. You see the difference of sizes right there. And this is the tomb of Sniffer. We see the servants providing food and drink to the giant Sniffer. I love his name. What a name. You see him bringing large pots. And now take a look at this. Now, those are called chest bracelets. Okay. And it's a weird name. It's like an emblem for your chest. Why would the servant be carrying one that huge? All right, look at Sniffer. I mean, that's the size he would wear. Why would the scaling be different? If the servant, you know, why would the servant be carrying one that was that large? That is literally the size of the chest bracelet that would go on the picture, okay? To the left of that, the giant Sniffer. This little magnification of those chest bracelets. Once again, a nice little size comparison for you. All of these pictures are actual representations of the real size. It's very obvious a child could see it. This is from the tomb of Rakmira. You see delegations from different Egyptian regions. They're loaded with gold and gifts. You see a person twice the size of a cow. I mean, you saw this in the previous segment. This is real representations. Look at these ships. You saw this in my previous video. On the ships, you see different sized people. There's no doubt at this point in my mind that the larger people were the ruling class. Okay, you had the kings, you had the nobles. They were the giants. The smaller sized people served the giants. Now that's how people could misconstrue this and say, no, it's a symbol of status. Yeah, it is and it isn't. Okay, the higher status were the giants. On the right, you see women of various sizes. You see the smaller women serving the larger women. So basically, the servants served the queens and the princesses from the race of giants. And there were higher status servants as well. They weren't all of the same status. This was in the tomb of TT81, also known as the tomb of Anini. Okay, he was a senior official in ancient Egypt. This is just west of Tiba, west of the city of Luxor today, on the west bank of the Nile. Anini served as the mayor of Tiba during the 11th Egyptian dynasty. This represents a hunting trip. You see the dog and the deer right there next to his foot? Give you a good representation of size. Here we have giants the size of giraffes. African delegations are presenting gifts to the kings of Egypt. I guess they're bringing giraffes. Now that's tall. Giraffes, that's at least 5 meters tall. Now this is a tomb of Mina. Mina was the scribe of the king of the lands north and south. He holds lots of titles. This guy, he's called the King's Eyes Everywhere and Close to the King and lots of other things, which basically means he was a supervisor or an elite. You see them serving him and his wife. They're bringing him things, all these servants. Here we have the tomb of Mina. There are dozens of workers harvesting wheat, counting, doing things of that nature. Here we go, images of giants and small servants once again. It just undermines the idea that kings are the only recorded giants. You know, they're not just kings. They're not. The history of Egypt, the history of the world needs to be reanalyzed and rewritten. All right, this is bullshit. This is absolute bullshit, what they're trying to feed us. It's very obvious what we're seeing here in the pictures. I mean, they drew pictures for us. You can't get any more clear. Here we have the inscriptions of Akhenhotep, and we have the statue of Ramses. Now, our sizes are equivalent to the smaller races in this picture. Just look at the right picture, look at the left picture. Very similar. I mean, the statues, the pictures, they illustrate this perfectly. And with a modern day comparison, you get the picture. Look at this. This is Amenhotep III statue, and here's the inscriptions from the Nufar Terrace. The giants are the same size as the statues. Our sizes are equivalent to the smaller size that's depicted in the inscription. Here's a good comparison of the statues of the Abu Simbel temple with the inscriptions of the terrace. There should be no misunderstanding this. It's very clear. All right, this is a coffin that was discovered in 1881 at the Temple of the Monastery of the Sea. All right, this is the coffin of Amos Nefertari. She was the wife of Amos I, the Hyksos persecutor. Now here, take a look at this. Take a look at this sarcophagus, right? Supposedly 2 bodies were buried in here. One, Ramses III, and the woman I just mentioned. Okay, Amos I's wife. Her name is Nefertari, Amos Nefertari. Now, archaeologists are saying they were both in this same coffin. That's 300 years apart. So you think that Ramses III, a king, and you think that the wife of Amos, who was 300 years previous to that, would be shoved in the same coffin? It makes no sense. It raises suspicion. There is fuckery afoot. These archaeologists are lying to us. It is very clear that nobody would do that. They wouldn't just shove 2 kings, or a king and the wife of a previous king, in the same sarcophagus. It makes no sense. This held 1 body. Look at the size. Look at the guy next to it. There was 1 body in here, not 2. And if there were 2, don't you think they would depict that on the outside? Wouldn't they show 2 bodies? The size of that coffin is almost identical to the size of the king and his wife. All right, Amos, Ramses. I'm not sure about Ramses, but Amos and his wife were both that big, according to the pictures. There's no reason why one of them, plus a normal-sized human, would have fit in that coffin. This is the giant Yuya coffin. Okay, it's from the 18th dynasty. Now, archaeologists will tell you that there are multiple sarcophagi within these things. Okay, and I've seen that. You look at King Tut's tomb; they have they're like those Russian dolls with stuff inside of, a doll inside of another doll. I don't buy it. All right, I think that's probably true to a certain extent, but do you think that there were 3 mummies shoved in this one? Because that's what archaeologists are claiming. In addition to 3 sarcophagi? What? Does it? It's illogical. It's illogical, and it's disrespectful. The Egyptians wouldn't do it, and they certainly wouldn't do it to honor a king or a queen, it just doesn't make any sense. There were giants in ancient Egypt. There were kings, nobles, and servants that were giants. They were varying sizes. This is fact. History needs to be rewritten, reanalyzed, and relearned. Sometime after the race of giants died, probably during the flood, their servants took over Egypt and walked in the paths of their masters.